Humans fear war, the Galactic Council declared. Their records showed a divided species. Short-lived, emotional, and haunted by its own violent past. They mistook restraint for weakness. They believed fear meant surrender. What they failed to understand was this. Humans do not fear war because they are incapable of it. They fear it because they remember what war costs. So when the first alien fleet struck Earth, and humanity answered with silence, the galaxy believed it had already won. It hadn't. Because when humans are finally forced to fight, they do not fight to conquer. They fight to end the war forever. And that is when the galaxy learned the truth. The species that fears war the most is the one you should fear the most of all. The Galactic Council chamber was built to intimidate. A vast ring of obsidian alloy floated in vacuum, suspended by gravity fields older than most civilizations present. 12 species sat within it, some towering, some coiled, some barely recognizable as biological at all. This was the highest authority in known space, the body that decided which worlds were protected and which were harvested. At the center of the chamber, a single hologram rotated slowly. A small blue planet. Designation, Sol 3. Common name, Earth. Dominant species, humans. Counselor Virex of the Valoran leaned forward, mandibles clicking softly. Begin assessment, it ordered. A data stream burst to life, flooding the chamber with symbols, images, and translated summaries. Humanity, the analyst drone recited, voice perfectly neutral, is a carbon-based species with an average lifespan of less than 100 local years. They are technologically creative but politically fragmented. Their history is marked by frequent internal conflicts, ideological divisions, and mass casualty wars. Several counselors emitted sounds of amusement. They destroy themselves regularly, said Counselor Sha'eth, a crystalline being whose species had not known internal war in millennia. That alone disqualifies them as a threat. Agreed, rumbled the Krovan representative, a hulking armored form. Any species that fears its own violence lacks the spine for galactic war. The hologram shifted, showing images of ruined cities, mushroom clouds, mass graves, human history condensed into brutal clarity. The analyst continued. Psychological profiling indicates that humans possess an unusually strong fear response to large-scale warfare. Their cultural outputs overwhelmingly portray war as tragic, destructive, and undesirable. Virex's mandibles curled upward in what passed for a smile. So, it said, they fear war. Yes, the drone confirmed. Extensively. That was all the council needed. The conclusion spread through the chamber like a verdict already decided. A fearful species cannot be dominant, declared Counselor Elantar. Fear breeds hesitation, added another. And hesitation loses wars, said a third. No one objected. Earth was categorized accordingly. Threat level, minimal. Strategic value, moderate. Resistance projection, negligible. The decision was unanimous. Authorize limited conquest, Virex announced. A demonstration strike. No planetary annihilation, only enough force to compel surrender. The council was efficient. Clinical. Confident. After all, they had seen this pattern countless times before. A young species rises. It fights itself. It learns to fear conflict. And when faced with a superior external force, it collapses. Humans, the council believed, were no different. They failed to notice one anomaly buried deep in the data. Every species that feared war did so because it had never truly mastered it. Humans feared war for another reason entirely. But the council did not ask why humans feared war. They only saw the fear. As the hologram of Earth dimmed, Virex concluded the session with finality. Prepare the fleet, it said. This species will submit without significant resistance. The chamber lights faded. The council dispersed. And across the stars, on a blue planet that had learned the price of war the hard way, ancient alarms, long silent, began to wake. Humanity did not scream. It did not plead. It did not threaten. It remembered. And that, the Galactic Council would soon learn, was far more dangerous than courage. The Galactic Council prided itself on preparation. No conquest was authorized without exhaustive study, and so, while fleets aligned and hyperspace lanes calculated, entire academies were tasked with dissecting humanity. Every war, every doctrine, every cultural artifact was fed into predictive models designed to forecast resistance. At first glance, the data was reassuring. Humans fought often. Too often. Civil wars. Religious wars. Ideological wars. Resource wars. Conflicts so frequent they blurred together across centuries. To the Council's analysts, it looked like chaos, an immature species locked in an endless cycle of self-inflicted destruction. But there was something unusual. Counselors, reported analyst Primus Kell, its elongated neural crest flickering, human war records show a statistically abnormal pattern. Define abnormal, Virex replied. Post-conflict behavior, Kell said. Following major wars, humans do not celebrate. They mourn. The chamber grew quieter. Kell expanded the display. Images appeared, memorials carved from stone, names etched endlessly into walls, empty helmets placed beside folded flags. Entire days of planetary silence. Children taught about wars they never fought, carrying grief that was not theirs. Most species glorify victory, Kell continued. Humans document loss. The Council exchanged glances. That only confirms their weakness, Sha'ath said. They regret violence. They fear it. Yes, Kell replied carefully. But not in the way we expected. The display shifted again, this time to human literature, cinema, and art. War was everywhere, but never heroic in the way the Council understood heroism. No songs of conquest. No divine mandate. No joy. Only cost. Human cultural output treats war as a failure, Kell explained. Even when they win, they portray it as tragedy. Their heroes are not conquerors, they are survivors. One of the Krovan generals snorted. Sentimentality. Experience, Kell corrected. The analyst highlighted a series of timestamps, human global conflicts classified as world wars. Casualty numbers scrolled beside them, climbing into the tens of millions. Humans reached industrialized warfare before they achieved planetary unity, Kell said. They learned what total war means, early. The Council listened now, uneasy despite themselves. Every time humans approached annihilation, Kell continued, they adapted. New doctrines. New restraints. New rules. Not to make war easier, but to make it rarer. Virex leaned back. You are suggesting their fear is learned. Yes, Kell said. Deeply. Another image appeared. A human phrase, translated crudely but faithfully. The ones who know war best are the ones who beg for peace. Silence filled the chamber. Then why, Sha'ath asked sharply, do they continue to fight each other? Kell's crest dimmed slightly. Because they are flawed. Emotional. Divided. But when facing extinction-level threats, there is no record of humans turning on each other. That earned a low murmur. Every major external threat in human history, Kell said, resulted in unprecedented cooperation. Former enemies became allies. Borders became irrelevant. And what happens when they win? Virex asked. Kell hesitated. They dismantle their war machines, it said. They reduce armaments. They memorialize the dead and swear, repeatedly, never again. Several counselors relaxed. See? Elantar said. They fear war so much they disarm themselves. Predictable. Kell did not argue. It simply added one final data layer. Hidden doctrines. Black archives. Contingency protocols labeled in human languages as last resort, mutual assured destruction, dead hand, final measure. These systems, Kell said quietly, are not designed to win wars. The council leaned forward. They are designed, Kell finished, to ensure no one survives starting one. Virex dismissed the concern with a flick of its mandible. Fear-driven deterrence, it said. Bluff and paranoia. They would never use such measures. The council agreed. After all, a species that feared war would never embrace it. As the analysts shut down their projections, hyperspace drives ignited across the void. The first galactic fleet turned toward Sol 3, confident in its calculations. On Earth, old bunkers opened for the first time in generations. Dust fell from warning lights as they powered on. Codes were verified, some so old their creators were long dead. Human leaders did not argue. They did not posture. They did not threaten. They looked at one another and understood the same terrible truth. They had tried peace. And now, once again, war had come looking for them. This time, humanity would make sure it was the last lesson the galaxy ever needed. The galactic fleet arrived without ceremony. No declarations. No negotiations. No symbolic warnings. The council had determined that humans feared war, and fear, they believed, would do the rest. Space around Sol 3 distorted as hyperspace ruptured open. 47 vessels emerged in perfect formation, their hulls shimmering with layered shields, weapons charged but restrained. This was not an extermination force. It was a message. Target selected, announced Fleet Commander Zalcor. Peripheral defense infrastructure. Minimal civilian loss. The order was deliberate. The council wanted compliance, not ashes. Orbital platforms, aging by galactic standards but still formidable, never saw the attack coming. Coherent energy lances sliced through them with surgical precision. Satellites went dark in cascading failures. Communications fractured. Navigation grids collapsed. From the surface of Earth, the sky briefly burned. And then, nothing. No counterfire. No planetary shields. No defiant broadcast. Human cities went dark as emergency protocols severed global networks. Air traffic grounded. Oceans fell silent as fleets submerged beyond detection. To the galactic observers, it was confirmation. They are paralyzed, Zalcor reported. Fear response matches projections. A transmission was prepared and sent toward Earth, translated into every known human language. This is a limited action. Submit governance authority to the Galactic Council and further hostilities will cease. The message repeated. And repeated. No reply came. Hours passed. Then days. Human channels remained silent. No leaders addressed the world. No surrender codes were transmitted. No desperate pleas echoed into space. Zalcor felt unease coil beneath its confidence. Scan deeper, it ordered. What are they doing? Sensors pushed past ruined satellites and through the planet's atmosphere. What they found did not match panic. Human military assets were moving, but not chaotically. Submarines vanished into thermal shadows. Mobile missile platforms disappeared beneath reinforced terrain. Underground facilities, far more numerous than expected, sealed themselves and came alive. This is not evacuation behavior, the sensor officer noted. Zalcor dismissed it. They are hiding. Perhaps, the officer replied. But hiding, with intent. On the third day, the council demanded escalation. Another strike, Virex commanded remotely. More pressure. Break their will. This time, the fleet targeted a coastal defense hub, small, isolated, symbolic. A warning shot that would cost lives but spare cities. Energy rained down. The base was erased in seconds. Human casualties were confirmed. The fleet waited. Still, Earth remained silent. No rage-filled messages. No threats of retaliation. No desperate mobilization broadcast for morale. Just silence. And that was when the first human response arrived. Not as a transmission. As an impact. Without warning, one of the outermost council vessels lost power. Shields collapsed. Its hull went dark, drifting helplessly. No energy signature preceded the strike. No weapons discharge was detected. Report. Zalcor snapped. Before the answer came, a second ship went dead. Then a third. Panic rippled through the fleet. Unknown attack vector, the sensor officer cried. No FTL residue. No energy spike. No. The fourth vessel exploded from the inside. Zalcor stared at the tactical display as new data finally resolved. Metallic objects, small, crude by galactic standards, were embedded in the disabled ships. They had been launched without propulsion, riding gravitational slingshots, accelerated over days of careful calculation. Pure kinetic kill vehicles. Silent. Invisible. Unstoppable. Humans, Zalcor whispered. On Earth, deep beneath layers of stone and steel, an old human general watched the confirmation light turn green. He did not smile. He closed his eyes. Phase 1 complete, he said quietly. Across the stars, the galactic fleet realized too late that Earth's silence had never been surrender. It had been preparation. And humanity had just spoken its first word of the war. The galactic fleet did not retreat. Not yet. They regrouped, tightened formations, recalibrated shields. The kinetic strikes had shaken confidence, but not authority. After all, surprise tactics were common among desperate species. What unsettled them was not the damage. It was the absence of celebration. No human signal followed the successful strike. No declaration of resistance. No propaganda broadcast meant to inspire allies or frighten enemies. Earth remained quiet. Fleet Commander Zalcor studied the tactical map, mandibles stiff. They crippled 4 vessels, it said. Why not press the advantage? The sensor officer hesitated. Commander. Human communications remain dark. But internal activity has increased exponentially. Define increased. Everywhere, the officer replied. Military installations once thought abandoned are active. Old launch silos, some predating their space age, have powered on. We are detecting encrypted traffic using non-quantum, low-tech signals. Cables. Lasers. Physical couriers. Zalcor frowned. Primitive. Resilient, the officer corrected. Immune to our interference. The fleet deployed reconnaissance drones. Few returned. Those that did brought disturbing footage. Human soldiers moving through underground corridors etched with age. Hand signals instead of spoken commands. Equipment rugged, scarred, clearly designed to function even when everything else failed. This is not a panicked civilization, Zalcor muttered. Elsewhere in the galaxy, the Council convened an emergency session. Virex watched the battle feeds with growing irritation. They are wasting time, it snapped. Why not negotiate? Analyst Primus Kell spoke again, voice carefully controlled. Counselor. Humans historically cease communication during existential conflicts. And when they do, Kell continued, it means their leadership has activated full-spectrum war protocols. Several counselors shifted uncomfortably. Define full spectrum, Sha'ath demanded. Kell hesitated for only a fraction of a second. Total societal mobilization, it said. Civilian industry converted. Scientific institutions repurposed. Cultural differences suppressed. The species functions as a single organism. That is inefficient, Elantar scoffed. Emotion-driven. Terrifyingly efficient, Kell replied. On Earth, governments that had once argued endlessly signed a single document. No speeches. No applause. No cameras. Just signatures. Borders blurred. Command structures unified. military authority centralized under a doctrine older than most nations. A doctrine written after humanity's darkest wars. If deterrence fails, if silence fails, then end the conflict fast enough that no one else ever tries again. Human factories roared to life, not for consumer goods, but for munitions. Shipyards dismantled civilian vessels to reinforce military hulls. Scientists stopped publishing and started calculating. Casualty projections were made. Accepted. On the fourth day, the Galactic Fleet attempted another probe. A destroyer moved too close to Earth's shadow, sensors sweeping for launch signatures. It vanished. No explosion. No debris. Just gone. Moments later, a data packet appeared on every council frequency simultaneously. Not a threat. Not a demand. A single human phrase, translated automatically. Do not come closer. The council chamber erupted. They speak now? Shyath hissed. They warn, Kel said quietly. Virex slammed its mandibles together. Arrogance. Issue the final ultimatum. Before the order could be transmitted, the fleet's long-range sensors screamed. Objects were launching from Earth. Thousands of them. Not ships. Not missiles. Something else. Zalcor stared as trajectories resolved. They are not targeting us, it said slowly. The objects passed the fleet and kept going. Toward hyperspace lanes. Toward supply depots. Toward relay stations across multiple systems. Human reach extended far beyond their planet. And still, Earth said nothing more. The Galactic Council had faced defiant species before. They had faced aggressive ones. They had never faced one that responded to invasion with calm, coordinated silence. Kel watched the feeds, a chill settling deep in its neural core. This is the stage humans fear the most, it said. And what stage is that? Virex demanded. Kel answered with a phrase pulled directly from human history. The point of no return. Because when humans stopped arguing, stopped broadcasting, and stopped asking for peace, they were no longer trying to avoid war. They were trying to end it. And the galaxy was about to learn why humanity had prayed it would never come to this. Continue. The first human boarding action shattered every remaining assumption. Galactic warfare was distant, clean. Shields, beams, precision strikes. Battles were decided by range, tonnage, and energy output. Close combat was inefficient, dangerous, unnecessary. Humans disagreed. The disabled Council cruiser drifted silently, its power systems fried by an unseen strike. Internal lights flickered. Life support was minimal but stable. Then something attached itself to the hull. Magnetic clamps locked in place. Zalcor watched through a drone feed as the cruiser's hull was cut open, not melted, not blasted, but sawn apart with brutal mechanical precision. Figures poured inside. No energy weapons. No glowing armor. Just dark plating, scratched and functional, faces hidden behind opaque visors. They were walking, a sensor officer whispered. Inside the ship. The feed went chaotic. Humans moved fast. Too fast for beings evolved for ranged war. They used corners, blind spots, smoke. Their weapons were loud, violent, terrifyingly personal. The cruiser's defenders fired energy bolts that scorched bulkheads and missed their targets. Human rounds did not miss. They advanced through corridors filled with alarms and dying light, communicating with taps, gestures, and brief, clipped words. Clear. Move. Contact. Zalcor felt something unfamiliar tighten in its chest cavity. Fear. They're not hesitating, it said. Why aren't they hesitating? Because humans did not enjoy this. They endured it. A Krovan shock unit tried to counterattack, their heavy exoskeletons designed to dominate physical combat. The humans changed tactics instantly. Explosives in confined spaces. Blades where weapons failed. One human was crushed beneath a Krovan's weight, another stepped over the body without pause, finishing the fight before dragging the fallen soldier back. Not abandoned. Retrieved. The feed cut out moments later. The cruiser was silent. Then its transponder changed status. Captured. Across the battle space, similar reports poured in. Human strike teams appeared where sensors said nothing could survive. They exploited maintenance shafts, emergency passages, forgotten design flaws. They studied us, a council tactician said in disbelief. No, Kel corrected softly. They studied war. Humans didn't charge blindly. They bled. And kept moving. When one team was wiped out by a collapsing corridor, another took its place without comment. No panic. No rage. Just grim efficiency. Zalcor opened a channel to the council, its voice strained. This species does not fight like conquerors, it reported. They fight like executioners. On Earth, casualty lists updated in real time. Families were notified by quiet knocks, not broadcasts. Grief was contained, compartmentalized, carried forward. Human command did not pretend the losses were acceptable. They simply deemed them necessary. The Galactic Council watched footage of human medics dragging wounded soldiers under fire, shielding them with their own bodies. Watched humans pause mid-battle to secure fallen comrades' identification tags. They honor their dead during combat, Sha'ath said uneasily. Kel nodded. Because they know there will be many more. As the fifth council ship fell, Virex finally understood the error. These are not monsters, it said slowly. Kel's gaze remained fixed on the screen. No, it replied. Monsters enjoy violence. The humans did not. They carried it like a burden. A responsibility. A final, terrible duty. And that was what made them so unstoppable. Because humans were not fighting to win. They were fighting to make sure no one, ever again, forced them to do this. As human forces prepared their next phase, one truth became undeniable across the galaxy. The species that feared war the most had become the most terrifying combatant anyone had ever faced. And the worst part? They were still holding back. The Galactic Council chamber had never been so quiet. No debates. No posturing. No dismissive laughter. Only footage. Dozens of feeds floated in the air, human boarding actions, crippled fleets, silent wreckage drifting through space. Each image told the same story from a different angle. The council was losing. They are dismantling our forces, Ilantar said, voice brittle. Not destroying them, dissecting them. Kel nodded. Humans minimize collateral damage even in victory. They prefer control over annihilation. That makes no sense, Sha'ath snapped. Why spare US? Because they are not trying to punish, Kel replied. They are trying to teach. The footage shifted. A human transport disengaged from combat to escort an alien life pod to safety. Moments later, the same transport rejoined the fight without hesitation. They protect civilians, one counselor murmured. They always have, Kel said. Even when it costs them. Virex stared at a still frame, a human soldier kneeling beside a fallen comrade, helmet pressed briefly to the other's chest before standing and returning to battle. They mourn in the middle of war, it said. How can they still fight? Kel answered with a line pulled from human psychology archives. Grief does not stop humans. It sharpens them. Reports continue to arrive. Supply lines severed, not by destruction, but by capture. Communication hubs infiltrated and overridden. Entire fleets isolated without a single shot fired. They're collapsing our infrastructure, Sha'ath whispered. System by system. Kel turned to the council. Humans fear prolonged war, it said. So they avoid it. Virex's mandibles trembled. By accelerating it. Yes. A new transmission cut through the chamber. Not a threat. Not propaganda. A briefing. Human military command had transmitted a live, unencrypted tactical analysis of their own operations, projected casualty curves, escalation thresholds, and end-state conditions. They were showing the Council how the war would end. This is psychological warfare, Elantar said. No, Kell corrected. This is transparency. The projection reached its final slide. Projected outcome if hostilities continue. Council fleet neutralized, 93%. Council infrastructure loss, irreversible. Human casualties, severe. Post-war recovery, humanity guaranteed. They are willing to pay that price, Virex said in disbelief. Kell did not look away from the data. They always have. Another feed appeared, human diplomats, standing in stark, undecorated rooms, waiting. Not begging. Not pleading. Offering an exit. They still want peace, Sha'ath said weakly. Yes, Kell replied. But only one kind. The Council finally understood the paradox. Humans feared war so deeply that once it began, they refused to let it linger. They would burn themselves out if it meant ensuring no one else could continue. This was not recklessness. It was mercy, applied brutally. Virex rose slowly, authority heavy but shaken. Issue a ceasefire, it said. Immediately. Several counselors exhaled in relief. Kell closed its eyes. Counselor, it said, humans do not accept ceasefires after this stage. Virex froze. Then what do they accept? Kell looked at the final transmission waiting to be opened. Unconditional cessation, it said. And acknowledgement. The message opened automatically. A human commander appeared on the screen. No insignia. No theatrics. Eyes tired. Voice calm. We did not want this war. You brought it to us. We are not here to conquer your worlds. We are here to make sure you never threaten ours again. The feed ended. No demands followed. Because humans were not negotiating from fear anymore. They were negotiating from certainty. And the Galactic Council, watching their power crumble with surgical precision, finally understood the true horror of humanity. They were not unstoppable because they loved war. They were unstoppable because they hated it too much to fight it twice. The captured human commander sat without restraints. The council chamber had been modified for the interrogation, gravity balanced, atmosphere tuned, environmental hazards removed. Every precaution was taken. None were needed. The human did not struggle. Did not glare. Did not posture. He simply waited. Virex circled him slowly. You understand, the counselor said, that your species stands at the edge of annihilation. The human looked up, eyes steady. No, he replied. We passed that edge days ago. Kell observed closely, recording every micro-expression. There was no bravado. No aggression. Only exhaustion. Why? Sha'ath demanded. Why fight this way? Why not retreat, negotiate, submit? You fear war, your own history proves it. The human nodded once. Yes, he said. We do. Silence followed. Then explain, Virex said sharply, why you fight like this. The human folded his hands. Because fear is not the same as avoidance, he said. Fear is memory. He looked around the chamber, meeting each alien gaze in turn. We remember cities burned for pride. We remember wars that started small and never stopped. We remember what happens when violence becomes normal. Kell felt something shift in the room. So we built rules, the human continued. Limits. Treaties. Warnings. Red lines. And when those fail? Virex asked. The human's voice hardened, not with anger, but resolve. Then we end the war, he said. Decisively. Kell projected human doctrinal archives onto the chamber walls. Ancient texts. Cold War strategies. Mutually assured destruction. Total war contingencies. These doctrines, Kell explained, are not about victory. They are about termination. The human nodded. If war starts, he said, we don't ask how to win. We ask how to make sure it never happens again. Sci-Fi recoiled slightly. At what cost? The human didn't answer immediately. Everything, he said at last. If necessary. The council shuddered. You would destroy yourselves? Elantar asked. We've come close before, the human replied. That's why we fear war. A long pause followed. Kell finally spoke. Your species is not expansionist. You don't seek dominance. No, the human agreed. We seek closure. Virex stopped pacing. And if we had destroyed your planet in the first strike? The human met its gaze. Then you wouldn't be here to ask that question. The implication was clear. Humanity's final measures were not defensive. They were retaliatory beyond survival. Kell understood then. Humans did not fear war because they were weak. They feared it because once unleashed, even they might not be able to stop themselves. You should have listened, the human said quietly. When we went silent. Virex felt the weight of that silence at last. What do you want? It asked. The human stood. Recognition, he said. And distance. Kell translated for the record. Humanity demands permanent non-aggression status. No fleets within their territory. No probes. No demonstrations. And if we refuse? Sci-Fi asked. The human paused at the doorway. Then this war will end, he said. How? Virex asked. The human did not turn around. There won't be a council left to argue about it. The doors closed. The chamber remained silent long after. Because for the first time in galactic history, the council truly understood the danger it had faced. Not a conqueror. Not a berserker. But a species that knew exactly how terrible war was. And had decided it would be the last to suffer it. The war ended without a final battle. No climactic annihilation. No burning worlds. No victory parade. It ended with a signature. The Galactic Council convened one last time, not in the Grand Obsidian Ring, but in a reduced chamber, half its members absent, their fleets crippled, their authority irrevocably broken. Across the table stood human representatives. They wore no medals. Displayed no weapons. Spoke without triumph. Virex read the terms slowly, each word heavier than the last. Permanent non-aggression toward Sol 3 and all human territories, it read. Recognition of humanity as a sovereign protected species. Immediate withdrawal of all council assets from human space. Establishment of a hard exclusion boundary. No reparations. No tribute. No humiliation. Only distance. You could have demanded more, Sci-Fi said quietly. The human diplomat shook her head. We didn't fight for more, she replied. We fought so this never happens again. The treaty was signed. The moment the final seal was placed, human fleets disengaged, not retreating, not pursuing. They simply stopped. Across the galaxy, something unprecedented occurred. Human war machines powered down. Factories returned to civilian production. Launch silos sealed. Emergency doctrines were archived once more, their access codes divided, buried, and guarded with almost religious seriousness. On Earth, memorials were built. Not to celebrate victory, but to remember the cost. The Galactic Council issued a new directive within weeks, one that would shape interstellar politics for centuries. Galactic Law Amendment 5. Human space is inviolable. Provocation of humanity is classified as an existential risk. Under no circumstances should humans be cornered, threatened, or forced into war. The number was not accidental. 5. The minimum distance Council fleets must keep from Earth's borders. 5 systems of buffer space. 5 unanimous votes required to even discuss human involvement in conflict. Historians would later debate why the Council chose that number. Some said it symbolized balance. Others said it was fear. Centuries later, young species would ask their elders why humanity held such an unusual place in galactic affairs. Why they were not conquerors. Why they did not rule. Why the galaxy listened when humans spoke and trembled when they fell silent. The answer was always the same. Because humans fear war. And then the elders would add, in quieter tones. They fear it because they know exactly what it turns them into. The final Council record on humanity closed with a single line, one that would never be revised. Humans fear war. And that is precisely why the galaxy must never make them fight one again. End.